My son sent $4,400 for my diabetes treatment into his wife's account so she could pay the clinic. Nothing was ever paid, and the clinic kept sending reminders. Then I found out she spent it on new clothes and booked herself a 5-night cruise. My name is Walter Higgins, and I spent 31 years running concrete crews and steel framing jobs across Louisville, Kentucky before my knees gave out and told me I was retired whether I liked it or not. I never wore a suit to work a day in my life. You would find me in a Carhartt jacket with sawdust in my boots. Not exactly a man you would trust with a spreadsheet. But hand me a set of blueprints and I could tell you if that wall was load-bearing before you finish the sentence. Before I tell you what happened next, tell me where you are watching this from. I would love to know. My wife, Sandra, and I have been married 34 years. We met when I was 29, framing her cousin's garage, and she brought out sweet tea because she said I looked like I was going to keel over in the July heat. Our son, Nathan, is 33, married 4 years to a woman named Brienne who is 35. Brienne works as the bookkeeper for a home goods store off Bardstown Road, handling the daily deposits, the vendor payments, the whole ledger. She is precise about numbers in a way that used to impress me. Sandra and I built a small life, a brick ranch on Trevelyan Way we paid off 11 years ago. Sunday dinners with Nathan and Brienne when schedules allowed. My best friend Roy Delacroix and I have known each other since 1994, back when we worked the same downtown site, and we still meet every Thursday morning at the same diner on Bardstown Road for eggs and complaints about the Titans. Months ago, my doctor told me I had type 2 diabetes. Not the mild kind you manage with a pamphlet. My numbers were bad enough that I needed regular treatment at a clinic on Frankfort Avenue, insulin management, quarterly blood work, a nutritionist, the whole program. It added up fast, $400 a month. 5 months in, Nathan sat me down at his kitchen table and said, "Dad, let us help with this. Send it to Brienne's account. She runs our whole budget anyway. She will make sure it gets where it needs to go every month without you having to think about it." I trusted that. Brienne balanced a store's books for a living. If anyone was going to keep $400 moving in the right direction every month, it was her. Around that same time, I started noticing small things. I did not think much of it at the time. At a 4th of July cookout, Brienne mentioned, almost under her breath to Sandra, that she was tired of showing up to family things in the same 3 outfits while everyone commented on how nice Sandra's sister looked in her new clothes. Sandra brushed it off as nothing. Women talk, but I remembered it. A few weeks later, Brienne mentioned she had not taken a real vacation since her honeymoon. Said it kind of flatly, not looking at anyone. The way people say things when they want you to notice but do not want to ask directly. I told myself money was probably tight for them. Young couple. Store manager's assistant salary. Nothing worth prying into. 3 months into the arrangement, the clinic mailed a reminder notice. I figured it was a clerical mix-up. I mentioned it to Nathan once at dinner, and he said he would look into it. Another notice came 6 weeks later. Then another after that. I kept telling myself these things get sorted out. Brienne handles a business ledger every day. She is not the type to lose track of an envelope. 1 month ago, on a Tuesday morning, the billing office at the clinic called my cell phone directly. A woman named Denise read me a number, $4,400 outstanding going back 11 months. She said if it was not resolved in 30 days, the account would go to collections and my treatment plan could be paused. I sat in my truck in the clinic parking lot for a long moment after that call. I did not say anything. I just looked at my hands on the steering wheel like they belonged to somebody else. That night, I asked Sandra to pull our bank statements. $400 a month for 11 months transferred exactly as promised to Brienne's account. The money had gone where it was supposed to go. It had just never left there because Nathan had added me years earlier as an authorized user on an old joint credit card we never got around to closing. I still had online access to see the linked statement. I spent 2 evenings going through 9 months of charges, printing every page, writing dates in the margins the way I used to mark up a job site punch list. A charge for $620 on Frankfort Avenue in April. A charge for $810 at a department store in June. Another for $340 at a shoe outlet in August. And in September, a charge for $2,200 to Carnival Cruise Line. 5 nights booked under Brienne's name for herself and 3 friends. I read that line twice. Then I read it a third time to make sure I was not confusing myself, sitting there at my own kitchen table at 11 coups at night. I called Roy. He picked up on the second ring, same as always. I said, "Roy, I need you to just listen for a minute." He said, "Go ahead. I am not going anywhere." I told him everything. The clinic notices, the transfers, the clothes, the cruise. He was quiet for a moment, which for Roy is rare. Then he said, "Walter, I love that boy like a nephew. But you did not raise him to marry someone who lets you go without your medicine so she could take a vacation with her friends." I said, "I do not even know if Nathan knows," Roy said. "Then that is the first thing you find out. And you do not do it with your temper. You do it with paper. Get everything printed, every statement, and then you call Colleen. Colleen Whitfield has been my lawyer for 6 years, ever since a dispute with a subcontractor on my last job. She is sharp. She does not waste words, and she has a way of looking at you over her glasses that tells you the conversation is already over before you finish talking. I brought her the transfers, the credit card statements, and the clinic's balance notices. She went through the folder for about 10 minutes without a word, then closed it and said, "Walter, this is not a misunderstanding. This is a pattern of diverting funds you provided for a specific stated purpose over nearly a year. In Kentucky, theft by deception involving an amount between $500 and $10,000 is charged as a Class D felony. And given the length and consistency of this pattern, that is exactly how a prosecutor would look at it." She said we had 2 paths, a formal demand for repayment backed by a restitution agreement, or filing a police report immediately. My goal, I told her plainly, was to get my treatment paid for and make sure this never happened again. Not necessarily to see my son's marriage end over it. Colleen drafted a letter demanding repayment of $4,400 within 14 days, stating clearly that a police report for theft by deception was already prepared and would be filed if the amount was not repaid. We set the meeting for a Saturday afternoon at my house. Sandra made a pot of coffee nobody touched. Roy sat in the recliner in the corner, arms crossed, there because I asked him to be. Colleen sat at the head of the table with a folder in front of her. Nathan and Brienne arrived expecting a normal conversation. Nathan said, "Dad, what is this about? You sounded serious on the phone." Colleen slid the folder across the table and said, "Mrs. Castellano, perhaps you would like to explain these charges." Brienne opened it, glanced down and said, "This is our joint account. We can spend our own money however we want." Colleen said, $4,400 of it was transferred specifically for Walter's diabetes treatment. That is documented and dated. I said, "Brienne, the clinic called me. Not Nathan, not you, me, while I was sitting there with unpaid insulin." Nathan turned to her and said, "You told me the clinic bill was handled months ago. Every time I asked, you said it was handled." Brienne said, "We had other expenses that month. I was going to catch up eventually." Colleen said, "Over 11 months with a $2,200 cruise booked in September. This was not a temporary shortfall. This was a decision made repeatedly." Brienne's voice rose. She said nobody in this family ever treated her like she belonged, that she watched Sandra's side get new clothes and vacations while she managed everyone's books and got nothing for herself. Nathan said, "So you stole from my father instead of telling me you were unhappy?" Brienne did not answer that. She looked at the folder instead. I said, "Brienne, I never asked you to love me. I asked you not to let me go without my medicine so you could go on a boat," Colleen said. "We have prepared a restitution agreement for $4,400, repayable over 6 months, along with a signed acknowledgement of the facts. The alternative is a police report filed Monday morning naming theft by deception, a Class D felony under Kentucky law." Brienne sat very still. She signed the agreement. Brienne repaid the full $4,400 over 6 months, the final payment landing in March. She kept her bookkeeping job at the store, but the store owner, informed only that there had been a serious personal financial dispute, began requiring a second set of eyes on all outgoing transfers she processes, a condition of her continued employment. Nathan and Brienne started marriage counseling that same month, and as of this writing, they are still together, though Nathan told me privately he does not know yet if he fully trusts her again. No police report was ever filed. My clinic bill was settled directly, and going forward, the clinic set up a system where any family contribution goes straight to their billing department, never through a relative's account again. My numbers have been stable for the last 4 months. Sandra and I still have our Sunday dinners, quieter now, slowly warming back up. Roy and I still meet every Thursday at the diner. It took the better part of a year to feel steady again, but I do now. Last Thursday, Roy slid into the booth across from me and said, "So, still trusting your daughter-in-law with your wallet?" I said, "Roy, I would not trust her with my parking meter." He laughed so hard the waitress came over to check on us. Sandra called that night and said the kitchen faucet was dripping again. I said I would fix it Saturday. She said, "You said that last month." I said, "Sandra, some things take time to repair properly." She said, "Walter Higgins, do not you dare use my medical crisis as a metaphor for a faucet." I said, "No, ma'am," and hung up smiling for the first time in a long while.